Hi, and welcome to Anne's Family Recipe. Today I'm making a super simple sheet pan supper featuring pork chops, potatoes, and green beans. Today's video is in partnership with Logan Family Farms in Irwin, Pennsylvania. They produce some incredible dry-aged beef products along with Berkshire black pork, which I'm working with today. Their meat is truly second to none, and we've enjoyed everything we've tried from Logan Family Farms. So today I have a 3-pound boneless pork loin that I'm going to cut myself into about 3/4 inch pork chops. Oftentimes it's a better deal to buy a larger cut of meat and then cut it down yourself, and it really isn't difficult at all. Now, their Berkshire black pork products are fabulous. There are a few unique qualities about this particular breed of pig. First of all, as you cook the pork, there is less moisture loss, so they are so juicy and tender. Additionally, they are very well marbled, so you will never experience a dry pork chop. One thing about purchasing your meat from a local farm is that you can get so much information from them about the product. So on this trip, I learned that the best temperature for cooking pork is 145 degrees, where it's safe to eat but still nice and juicy. Logan Family Farms has a marketplace on premise. They also offer a meat drop box, which is monthly deliveries of meat straight to your door, and they are open throughout the summer and into the fall at a bunch of farmers markets in the Western Pennsylvania area where I live. I'll leave the Logan Family Farms website linked in my description box below so you can check out all of the amazing products they offer. Sheet pan suppers have been trending for the past year or two, and I think I've only ever made one in my experience, but I really wanted to try this technique out. However, I was slightly skeptical because all the recipes that I checked online for, let's say, a pork chop, a green vegetable, and then a potato, all were cooked at about 400 degrees, but the time varied anywhere from 15 to about 40 minutes. And I knew that potatoes were going to take a lot longer to cook than the pork chops because, of course, I didn't want to overcook my meat. So I'm going to kind of break it down how I cooked everything perfectly. I still only used a single sheet pan. You just have to tweak it a little bit so everything gets enough cooking time. So let me show you the recipe. I'm starting by prepping my vegetables. Now you can adjust the amounts that you use. The method will stay the same as far as the sheet pan recipe goes. I have 6 people in my family. This is like a small bunch of green beans, I don't know, a little less than a pound I would imagine. And I chopped both ends off so they were neat and trim, and then I moved on to my potatoes. I bought a 24-ounce bag of baby potatoes for this recipe. So it's a mix of red skin and then these baby Yukon Gold, which are nice and creamy. And I quartered these. Next, I spread my vegetables out on a sheet pan. And again, I'm cooking for 6, so I did have to divide this between 2 sheet pans, but I tried to get some of every ingredient on one pan so I could simulate that single sheet pan idea. Once my veggies were spread out in a single layer, I drizzled them with a couple tablespoons of olive oil, probably 2 tablespoons on the potatoes and then another tablespoon on the green beans. And then I sprinkled them, just to my liking, with coarse salt, pepper, and garlic powder on the potatoes too. And then I used my hands to toss everything around so it was evenly coated in the oil and seasonings. Now onto this beautiful boneless pork loin. As I mentioned before, I cut it into 3/4 inch pork chops myself, which again is so easy to do. You just kind of measure it out and go from there. This ended up producing I believe 9 chops, so it worked out well because I wanted to cook the potatoes longer. So after my first batch, I removed the meat and the green beans, and then I added my remaining pork chops with the potatoes that I wanted to continue cooking, so they got a double amount of time in the oven. Next, I decided to make a homemade ranch seasoning for my pork chops, but this part of the recipe is totally customizable. If these flavors don't appeal to you, you could use salt and pepper and garlic powder, maybe a little paprika and some herbs. You could even incorporate some sweetness with a little brown sugar. Whatever sounds good to you, you can play around with this seasoning blend. For my homemade ranch, I mixed together a teaspoon of garlic powder, onion powder, dill, and parsley, and then I seasoned it with a little kosher salt and black pepper. I had enough space to nestle 3 pork chops in amongst the veggies on each of my trays, and then I sprinkled both sides of each chop with my seasoning blend. Lastly, I drizzled a tiny bit of olive oil over the top of each pork chop as well. These roasted in the oven at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes, and at that point, the green beans and pork chops were perfect, but the potatoes were only about halfway done. So like I said before, I took the pork and the beans off, and then you can just put the potatoes back in for an additional 15 minutes, or in my case, I had some extra pork chops to cook up, so I popped those back in with the potatoes. Pork chops are perfectly cooked when they reach an internal temperature of 145 degrees. So if you remove these from the oven when they're just about at 145, as they rest, that carryover cooking will bring them to the perfect temperature. And you can see here as I'm slicing into them, they are super succulent and juicy. And these were probably the best pork chops my husband and I have ever eaten. Great flavor and so moist and tender. Every element of this sheet pan supper was simple but delicious. I hope you give this one a try. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram at Ann's Family Recipe, and give this video a thumbs up if you liked my sheet pan supper. Make sure you check out the Logan Family Farms website, which again, I'll have linked in my description box below. Thank you so much for joining me here in my kitchen, and I'll see you again soon with more family recipes.